All right, here I go. I want to talk about this one, no sex marriage. I started a whole new channel so I could really talk about some of the things that I want to talk about on my channel, but I didn't really feel comfortable with because you got, people, family, people and whatever, whoever. So I started this new channel, spiritual vlogs, just more I could talk about anything. No holds barred. Don't have to be concerned about who's going to hear it or whatever. But this is a topic that I'm sure more than just a few people are experiencing. It's no sex marriage. Yeah, how's about that? No sex marriage, right? Well, just pretty much everybody expects there to be sex in marriage, and it's part of the glue that keeps the marriage together. But it's not supposed to be. I never thought of sex as being the the whole foundation of marriage. There's more important aspects. More important is you have support for one another. You have a sharing, caring, loving relationship, and you can share and exchange ideas and have a good conversation and support one another. That seems to be the most important thing. You both understand one another, you both listen to one another. So the main thing is communication and understanding, and helping one another to feel just to feel support from one another, sharing, doing things together, and enjoying life together, right? So, well, if you have that, then I think a marriage can survive, even if there's not sex for whatever reason. There has to be at least that much of the foundation for the marriage, though. So when I got married, it was more. I wasn't as much concerned about sex because I had spent some years practicing celibacy and living like a life as a monastic life, as a celibate, serving the missionary purposes of trying to connect with God, trying to get with foremost our relationship with God, which I still believe is the main thing that's going on here. At least for me, that's the number one thing is your relationship with God before all else. And then relationships with other people, are secondary. Not that they're not important, but the most important thing I feel is the relationship with God. And that's what's carried me through, even though I ended up having in a relationship that's a no-sex relationship. That's how I'm able to, get by, let's say. Not 100%, well, I guess getting by is the way to put it, because it's not like I'm 100% fully satisfied in this kind of situation. I still have these desires that I have to contend with, unsatisfied. But I got married. We made these vows, these religious, spiritual vows of marriage and of practicing, sex, not engaging in illicit sex. It's one of the religious vows that on the path that I took of Hare Krishna consciousness, you make a vow of not to engage in sex outside of marriage. And ideally, in the strictest sense, sex from the spiritual perspective is supposed to be ideally for procreation, specifically, and then otherwise sex for enjoyment, even between husband and wife, is supposed to be, according to the teachings, it attaches us to another material body. We set ourselves up to get another material life by being attached to pleasures of the flesh, let's say, or pleasures of the material body, material mind. So one is supposed to have, a spiritual foundation is supposed to be the most important thing is our relationship with God. It's supposed to be foremost. So, but that's the ideal, but realistically, that things aren't always ideal and realistic as they sound in books. So the reality is that we got married, and then we had like sex. Both of us, we had like pretty regularly sex for the first couple of years or so, few years, I think. Now we've been together for 12 years. So actually, I think, no, it had to be more than a few years that we had sex, because I think it's been like the last few years we stopped having sex. But I didn't marry her because of sexual attraction. She's not she's a very reserved, very, conservative, religious, even you could say a prudish, someone who is like practically offended by anything sexual, She will never watch any R-rated movie that has any sexual content or anything like that. She's like offended by it. She'll be offended by going to the beach. I couldn't take her to the beach. She'd be uncomfortable at the beach if I go to the beach. And we go to the beach and there's a bunch of girls wearing bathing suits, and she'd be like uncomfortable that I'm exposed and I'm seeing these girls, and she's like just so easily like bothered by any kind of sexual exposure. So that's the kind of thing that I got married into. And then on top of that, one of the other factors was she was 17 years older than me. Now, I wasn't really intending on, although I practiced celibacy for a few years, and I was strictly celibate. I had like 3 years from 22 to 25. I had 100% celibate, no masturbation, no contact with women, 100% strictly celibate. The only thing I had was an occasional wet dream, like once a month, because the sex desires were still there, apparently on a subconscious level. Well, yeah, they were still there. They're still here. I'm now 50 years old, and this was 28 years ago. So, but somehow I for 3 years, I didn't have any. This was like the awakening, the beginning of my experience into my spiritual path, and I just had a lot of inspiration, and somehow or other, I didn't have any sex desires for a few years. So I was strictly celibate. And then somehow the desires started coming back. And then I engaged in, I would, have occasional masturbation. And then, I started, looking to see about getting married. And so I don't know, I had a couple of contacts with a couple of girls, but the lady that I married to, so circumstances put us together, and but I was more of like looking at it as a friendship at first, because she was much older, 17 years older than me. But I don't know, we got along. We had a certain amount of things in common as far as our religious, spiritual beliefs. And one thing led to another. And we were going to take a trip to go up to the Bear Mountain Resort and stay at a hotel. And I could tell where this is going to go, where this is going. But part of me was going to stop myself from doing that. And I said to her, if this is going to if we're going to end up having sex, then, we have religious beliefs and our morals and principles, then we're supposed to get married. We would have to talk about getting married, and I wasn't sure. I wasn't like I was saying that I didn't really expect to get married, because she already has daughters, and she's 17 years older than me. And she said something like, "Nah, don't think about that. Don't talk about that. Don't worry about that. Nothing." And I had the impression that it was just like, okay, well, we can have sexual intimacy without having any, strings attached, without having any expectations, to get married. But after we had sex, then she revealed that she wanted me to marry her. And, she said she was gonna, if we don't get married, then she's gonna go back to her country, to Venezuela. She's gonna leave. So it was kind of you could say a little bit of manipulation there. at the time, I was like, I felt like part of me was like, well, maybe I realized I had this come in and we consented to have sex, so the right thing for me to do is to, accept to marriage. And that was what I thought was the right thing to do according to my religious beliefs and principles. And it wasn't just out of duty, but I also felt like we had some friendship. We had, made some type of friendship, and we made this contact, an intimate contact. And after years of being celibacy, to have sex with someone was like it's supposed to be a sacred experience. So I thought it was the right thing to do. I felt like I should do that. I should not just make it a cheap one-nighter kind of thing and then break the relationship, and she's going to go away, and then she'll feel bad, I might feel bad, and I will lose that relationship. So I accepted. I thought, okay, well, that would be the right thing to do. And although I was reluctant because she had been married before, but that was in a different country, and she was divorced for years, and she had 3 already girls growing up, but grown-up girls that were already, I think, like 14, something like 14, and one that was like 20s, a couple that were already in like their 20s. And she was, at the time, 55, and I was 38. 55 and 38. But she looked good for her age. She looked a lot younger. She still looks a lot younger. She always still seems a lot younger than her age. And also her personality. She almost seems like, to me, she seems like a young girl, like a child. Not even a woman, like a lady, but also she seems sometimes, to me, seems immature, even up to this day. Sometimes to me, it's like she's a little girl. She needs me to do everything for her, really, So it's like, anyhow, that's jumping way back ahead, but going back, I agreed to the marriage. We got married. We both had some sex desire for some years. But then there was a few issues from a physiological perspective. She had her last child. She told me that part of her reproductive system was removed after her last childbirth, after her 3rd childbirth. This was just as we got married. This had already happened some years before that. She had part of her reproductive system was removed. Like, I don't know what it was, her ovaries or something like that. So I don't know how that's one factor that could affect your sexual desires. And then she, what else? She had this, religious, she was never like the type of girl that would dress and show herself like many girls will wear skirts and wear, clothes to show off their legs and their part of their breasts. And she was never like that. And she's ultra conservative, always wearing like a long dress, have her whole body covered, sort of almost even like from Muslim. She was brought up in a Hindu family, very conservative. Like, you have these, I think in the Muslim women, they have everything, like their heads covered and everything. And she likes that kind of style, That's how she is. She's very, very, what you say? I mean, I in some sense, from a spiritual point, I respected that. I thought that was a good thing too. But she's very extreme. Like, she would never indulge in any kind of, like, people have sex and women give like oral sex. And, couples have oral sex. She wouldn't go do those kind of things, and not into it. She was like into some sex. We had some sex for some times and had orgasms together. There was one time I even gave her like something like 15 orgasms in a row in like a couple hours. So we had like a few intense sexual experiences for a while. But then over the years, she had no desire, and then over the last few years, it gradually waned down, but then over the last few years, she like totally stopped. She lost all sex desire. The other thing is, she has a hypothyroidism. So her thyroid, she takes a medication for the last 20 years that is her life depends on this medication to regulate her thyroid, because the thyroid is totally dead. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't function at all. And the thyroid regulates your hormones. It has to do with your body temperature. It has to do with a lot of things. It can affect your mood. It can affect your, I believe, your sexual desires. Then women, also there's what is it called? Menopause. Okay, so women after a certain age, what is the age when women go through menopause? It varies, but like I think a lot of women after their 50s, they go through menopause, and some women, they still have sex desire. Some may have more sex desire, but some may not even have. Menopause can affect a woman's sex desire also. So, that may have been another factor. Some women just lose their sex desire when they get older like that. So she's now 66. She'll be 67 coming up next month. She'll be 67. But again, I said she don't really look like she probably passed for maybe 55 or so, I would guess. She looks a good bit younger, but so she just doesn't have any sex desire and totally stopped having sex, doesn't care to have any sex. And even though she doesn't have sex, she doesn't care to do anything to satisfy me. But I also don't feel that way about her. I'm not attracted in that way to her either anymore, because I don't know, we're just become like friends. It's become like a platonic relationship. And, but I still have plenty of sex desire. I'll just be turning 50. I still have plenty of sex desire. And, I try to do the no-fap thing, but I only last for, at most a couple weeks, really. Usually only just a few days, maybe even a week. Usually every few days, as soon as the desire comes up, I just my determination for no-fap is gone. You just start indulging in, I just start fantasizing about all those things. I always loved, I always was attracted to women with big, large breasts and areolas, big areolas like grapefruits or oranges, the size of an orange. And, women that have, a big bush. I don't know, shaved. I don't know, women shaved doesn't really do anything for me, but I like women that have a big bush. And I don't know, sometimes it'll just be, not sometimes, but many times it's so easy nowadays to just go on your phone and look for, find the pictures that you like of exactly what you like. And this isn't really I've done this, many times, but it doesn't really satisfy. It's just like scratching an itch. You get rid of your sexual desire for a short while, and then after a short while it comes back in no time. So that's not really satisfying. I want to be able to, from a spiritual perspective, one should be able to control their sexual desire. That's part of the goal, part of my spiritual path. One of the teachings is the more you can control your sexual desire, the more spiritual progress you can make, the more you can redirect that energy. The idea is called sexual transmutation. The idea of no-fap, you redirect that impulse, that energy into creative and productive pursuits. And supposedly that energy, the semen, is the force of life. It's a creative force. It creates life. It has a lot of power and potency in it. And when it's supposed to be a waste, you're actually just, if you're masturbating and releasing it, you're supposed to be wasting that potency, that potential that you have that you can convert into creative energy. But it is so difficult. I've been trying this for years. Like I said, I had a 3-year stretch one time when I never had sex desires. But nowadays I have sex desires, even though I'd like to be able to control it. It's just the determination is just I haven't been able to keep it up for more than, I think the longest I've gone is a few weeks. So, and then I'm torn between wanting to, be spiritual, make spiritual progress, but then at the other side, it's I have this other side. It's just, I want to have an intimate relationship with a woman and be able to be sexually satisfied. And then, it's like these two contrary sort of desires, like you want to be self-satisfied. I want to, on one hand, I would like to attain a state of self-satisfaction where I don't need somebody else to satisfy me. I'm not dependent on a relationship with somebody. I'm just like connected with God, and I'm fully satisfied in my relationship with God. And I don't feel like missing anything if I don't have a relationship with somebody. If I don't have somebody to whatever, even a friend but everybody needs, it's like you have to be a superhuman. You have to have such an amazing connection with God to be like free from any need for having, friends, a friendship or an intimate relationship with someone. So that's like an ideal that I have, is to have this, be in this state of consciousness, just being blissful, nirvana, and being fully self-satisfied from within, and being totally connected with God and feeling just blissed out, not even having to take drugs, not need to have a woman to make me feel good, but to just have a relationship, just pure connection with God. But sometimes it seems like just stuff that sounds good in books. It's like, is it real, or is it just a myth? Because how many people do you meet? Like, it's so rare. I know it's so rare and uncommon, but I do not want to be just a commoner. I just do not want to be a common man, just a common human being that just is like everyone else. I'm trying to, make some spiritual evolution here. But it's a struggle. It's this internal struggle, I'm like torn between my spiritual desires and then the material desires of the body and mind. And it's tough, man. So, for the meantime, what do I do? All I can do is just masturbate, and I'm not really satisfied with that. And I've told her, look, I said, I told her our relationship is like, we don't even have much of the supportive relationship that I said you could have a relationship without sex, but you have to have like a good connection and, good communication. And the communication is even lacking also. That's another aspect for me that is not there. She does not really care much for what having a deep conversation. She doesn't really care much for the things that I'm interested in, and listening to me, she's not really interested in the things in what I have to say or what I'm interested in. And she spends like most of her time talking to all kinds of people on the phone. She's got all these people that she knows from all over the place, India and Venezuela and Trinidad and New York. And she's got family and friends, people all over that's her satisfaction, is just being in contact with all these people and talking, chatting, being on the phone all the time. And sometimes I feel like I'm just there, like, just to be her caretaker, basically. To whatever, mow the lawn, pay the bills, see that everything's in order whenever, give her rides to the doctor and stuff like that. I mean, some people would say you should just cancel that relationship, just end and get out of there. But I still feel like, I don't want to get me wrong, like I'm not putting the whole relationship down. We've been together. This is the only person I've actually been with for this long in my whole life. We got put together, circumstances put us together. We stayed together for 12 years. We have a certain amount of, common things in common as far as our belief, our spirituality. And we live in a house together that we love where we live. We like the house where we live in. And we get along at least as much as you would say as roommates. For roommates, we get along just fine, but there's not really there's no intimacy. It's just a platonic relationship. So, it's hard for me to just pull out and just break it off, and then just or sell the house, and then just have no house, and then have half a house, half the money is for half a house that I wouldn't be able to buy another house. And I might feel bad that I just threw away our relationship. And I'm not sure if it's in the eyes of God, if that were the right thing to do, because, for my own personal interest, because I wanted some to satisfy my sexual desires. I'm not sure if that's really what is the right thing to do in the eyes of God. So it's a bit of a challenge. bit of a challenge. Okay. And yeah, but I've also told her that I have sexual desire, and I would like to, often I have the desire to be with a woman that I told her I may just have, if I have the opportunity, I may have a relationship with someone. And she's like, she's not totally against it. She's not saying, no, you can't. She's not crying about it and saying no, but she's not like, she's somewhat agreeable to it. She understands at least that much. I have this desire. So she's talking like she's not going to be like, well, she might feel a little hurt. She might feel some hurt by it, but she's not totally against it. She's not like just like rebelling against the idea. But she's like, she don't want me to bring anybody to the house. She wouldn't want me to bring someone to the house. Sometimes I talked about if we could have like a second wife. I thought it would have been nice if like we had three people living together, like a family, 2 wives. Because in the Vedas, according to the spiritual teachings in Krishna consciousness, one can have a legitimate relationship with a marriage to 2 women. Polygamy is not totally illegitimate if it's agreeable by all 3 persons and they live together harmoniously, and the man can support both of the women. The idea behind it was that, and there was times when there was more women than men, and women need to have some support. So a man could, if the man was able to, he could legitimately be married to 2 women if he could support them and take care of them both properly, and they were all agreeable. So I thought, well, that would have been nice if we could have a situation like that. And she was like, she was a tiny bit like not totally against the idea, like almost like thinking about it, but she never embraced that. She never liked that idea. She concluded that couldn't be possible. It would never work out, and some other girl would come in and try to take her place or something like that. And so she was not really agreeable to that idea. And then she's not fully agreeable either to me to go have another relationship, but she's at the same time, she's not totally against it, because she a little bit understands, my situation, this desire that I have, and feeling unsatisfied. But she wouldn't be open to me to bring someone to the house to have a relationship. So I'm in this kind of like this awkward situation, It's like, and then with the COVID thing, it's another layer of complication. It makes it harder to meet. But on top of all that, I never really, my life had never really brought me much opportunities to meet women. It just doesn't really happen for me, Like, I don't get women like looking at me or smiling at me, or if I even tried to make a conversation, it usually just doesn't really happen for me. So yeah, it's been kind of, I even put my profile up a few times. I put it up and took it down on a website, it's supposed to be with spiritual singles. There's supposed to be other, people, men and women who are also interested in spiritual stuff, spiritual lifestyle. And I put my profile up there, but I never really got any response. I got one response from one attractive woman. I explained to her my situation, that I'm actually living with someone and did I mention we're not legally even married anymore? Because she's got all these medical conditions and she needs to have proper insurance. She could get Medicaid if she's not married. That's just how the system works. And so in order so she could have, because we have pretty low income, so I couldn't afford an extra $500 a month, whatever, just to pay out of pocket for her to have the type of insurance that she needs. So the only solution really was to file a divorce. And it's like we did a divorce for that purpose, but then at the same time it is kind of like we are really divorced anyhow, because we're not like, it doesn't feel like we're a husband and wife relationship. It feels like more like just we're like living together as roommates anyhow. We don't have any But and then again, it's not fully a roommate situation because she's not comfortable with me bringing someone else home, bringing a new person home and having a relationship with her at home, at the house. So yeah, bit complicated of a situation, like for most people, their solution might be just to get a divorce and then go live. Of course, it's more complicated when you have children together. We never had children together, so that's one thing that's a little less complicated. But we own a house, where we living in the house together. So when you own a house together and you have to split up the house, and then you only have half, you want to go start over again with a new, take on a mortgage, half a mortgage for a house. One thing I really liked in life was not having a mortgage, and just simple living, not having to have a lot of big bills. I don't know if I want to start over with that and take that on and, give myself other complications, all because, I needed to have sex. And then I could end up getting into another relationship that could give me another headache. You never know, another complication. Relationships is no guarantee. So I don't know if I want to, and I'm about 50 now, so it's at this stage in life, you're supposed to be winding down, trying to get detached out of sex attachments. And I might be just complicating myself more if I get into a next relationship and develop, I move out of the house, I go try to buy another house, move in with someone else, and who knows how that's going to go. But based on my whole life, it's, it doesn't seem like it would really, there's a big chance that it wouldn't work out, because I've had a lot of just relationships gone sour with people in general, a lot of disconnects with people, a lot of situations, people just ghosting out, and just miscommunication, misunderstanding, and broken relationships. And I had a couple of girlfriends, one in high school that broke off. She broke off. And I don't know, whatever it is, whatever the reason is, I just chalk it up to my karma, whatever. This is my karma in this life for whatever reason. I just gotta have to deal with it. But yeah, wow, it is hard. I mean, sometimes I just have such a strong desire. You just want to have a girl, you want to have a woman to just satisfy this sexual desire with, man. And just without any restriction, just enjoy each other's, just take care of each other's sexual needs, satisfy one another, have orgasms together and everything. And, it's so I'm split in the middle between trying to get spiritual connection to God. Supposedly, there's some teachings, like the Gnostic teachings, which are this sort of mystic Christian based off of Christianity, but mystical, and it's not part of mainstream Christianity. It's this underground type of teaching, but there's a lot of basis to it. According to the Gnostic teachings, the orgasm was the original sin that was indulged in. The apple was was symbolic of the actual sin itself was engaging in orgasm, and that was supposed to be what was forbidden or what was refrained from, because that was the height of material enjoyment. So Adam and Eve, somehow they were curious about it, and they engaged in sex and had orgasm together. And that was supposed to be the cause of their downfall into material existence and struggle for material life. So, but God realization, God consciousness is supposed to be much more amazing than an orgasm. An orgasm is supposed to be just like a drop of water from the ocean. It's just a small drop, and it only lasts for a few minutes, and then it comes and it goes. And comes and it goes, no pun intended. Orgasm is supposed to be nothing compared to the bliss, the ocean of bliss of spiritual consciousness. But we got attracted to material enjoyment, and sex is the essence of, is like the basis of all material enjoyment. From sex, everything else comes out. From sex comes birth, and then children and family and attachments, and the need to have money and a job and prestige and position, and all these things are supposed to all originate. It all starts with sex, and then everything else follows. So sex is supposed to be the biggest entanglement and attachment in the material world. And ultimate goal of life is to become more attached to God than to sex. That's how much God wants us to love. Our relationship with God has to be stronger than our relationship, our attachment to sex. Our attachment to God must be stronger than our attachment to sex. Though for most of us, our attachment to sex is way stronger. Our attachment to God is just a blip, it's just like a Sunday routine. We don't even have any actual attachment to God, because it seems like just a myth, whatever. It's something that sounds good in books or whatever, and it's just something that maybe you give a few minutes of thought to on Sundays. You go to church and say a few prayers, and that's about all there is to it. So, for most people, attainment of God consciousness is not a reality. Most people assume that they're going to die and then go to heaven and live happily ever after, and that's all that they have to do. And in the meantime, while you're in this material world, live it up and enjoy, have as much sex as you can. But at least to the teachings that I've come upon in my life that have presented to me, is that in this life is an opportunity to develop your God consciousness. So you have to develop your God consciousness before you die. This life is an opportunity to awaken that God consciousness. You have to develop this attachment and consciousness even before you die. The whole life is like a preparation for when you're passing away from this body, and then you can, you will transcend into a higher state of existence of consciousness. But if we just remain attached to all the things of this world, especially sex, then supposedly we just get carried to a next lifetime. Maybe spend some time in the afterlife, like have a bit of a vacation in the afterlife, but then eventually take birth again into our next material body to continue our material journey. So that's my understanding, but that's how I deal with this no-sex relationship, is understanding that it's in the ultimate sense, I may be better off. Maybe this situation is helping me is pushing me to get out of the material attachments of this material existence, attachment to sex. So, but it all sounds good. Sometimes it's something that seems to sound good in books, but in actual practice, it seems like almost impossible, very difficult to overcome these desires. And God has made women so unbelievably attractive. There's so many attractive women out there everywhere. And it's so easy to look at pictures online and to see so many naked women, all the different varieties of naked women. Just choose what you like, type it into Google, and there you go. You like big butts, you like big boobs, you like skinny girls, you like fat girls, you like whatever you like, whatever your fetish is. Just type it in and boom. So it's so easy to access to have pictures in front of you, but it's not even the real thing. It's all just an illusion. So I'm trying to get out of this attachment. I don't have any advice for really the ordinary average guy who just is trying to decide whether he should break off his relationship and get the heck out, or most people will probably be thinking like that. I don't know how many people are thinking in terms of the spiritual aspect of this. For me, that's the way that I'm dealing with it. I'm looking at it from this perspective. But I am very tempted to the possibility, if I have, an opportunity presents itself, it may be very hard for me to resist having a sexual experience with a woman. But again, I don't think I'd want to just have a one-nighter. What good is that going to do anyhow? That's not really satisfy you. Have a regular desire. You need to have a regular partner, someone that you can, have sex with on a regular, like a few times a week at least, to get you to feel just take care of your desires. So I don't know, do I want to do that? Do I want to get so involved with somebody else? And I'm trying to do a lot of things in my life that I'm trying to accomplish. I'm trying to grow this channel. I want to make music. I have other things I want to do. Do I have time to be with another person and have another relationship and spend a bunch of time with someone, just hanging out and chatting and doing things together? Where do I have the time? And I have, I'm already, technically, somewhat married, not legally married. We're friends together, but it's kind of complicated. It's I don't know, man. It's complicated. So, good luck to you, but I feel for you. All guys out there that are in the same shoes that have a no-sex relationship, yeah, I know that's a tough one, man. I can't really give any personal advice as whether one should just get a divorce and break it off. I mean, usually divorce is in most religions, divorce is frowned upon, but realistically, how can you live together? If you live married with somebody and then you just don't get along, you don't have anything in common, what's the point, really? You made some legal obligation or whatever, and then you're supposed to stay together with that person for the rest of your life, and both of you be unhappy. That doesn't really, I don't know, man. I don't know if that's something that was a man-made idea or whatever, if that's really God's way or what, but it's all kind of complicated, man. Marriage is complicated. Material life is complicated. I don't know. What can I tell you? Everyone's got to make their own decisions and decide if you do what you got to do. But I guess for the most part, my advice is mostly the spiritual aspect. That don't let your sex. I don't think one should let their sex desire drive their ultimate decisions in life, because that is not supposed to be the most important for me. That's not the most important thing. It's supposed to be that even animals have sex. So human beings are supposed to be have the intelligence to realize their relationship with God. And if one does not try to awaken that, make that connection with God, then they're supposed to be not really any different than the animals. Because the animals, they eat, sleep, mate, and defend is the four basic principles of material activities of material life. So human beings do the same things in a polished way. We eat, we sleep, we also have sex and defense, or some, security, having a house, having a shelter, having some security system, so basically the animals all do these things. They have their means of defense, they have their means that they have sex, they have food, they have their shelter. So human beings are doing just all the same stuff in a polished way. We live in a fancier house, we may have more pleasurable sex, whatever. I don't know, maybe to the birds and the bees, their sex is just as pleasurable, who knows really, but it's all basically doing the same stuff. So it's all supposed to be just material activities. So the difference between humans and the animals is supposed to be our connection with God. So if our, ultimate decision making in life is based on our sexual drive, then we're just, basically we're working as the animals are. We're just engaging in material activities basically, and that becomes the drive of our life. So I don't want that to be the ultimate drive of my life. I want the ultimate drive to be my spiritual. So it's a hard struggle for me, man, between the spiritual and material, man. But I just putting it out there just to sympathize, empathize with anybody else who's in a no-sex marriage. I understand how hard that is. I wish the best to you, man. And I hope it works out for you. And my prayers to all. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe and share. And